let's begin in our formal way. Yes, are we ready? Okay, so from Israel, shalom to everyone and a very warm welcome. On behalf of MASHAF, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, MATC, which is MASHAF's Center for Agricultural Training, and Keren Kayemet LeIsrael, the Jewish National Fund, I am truly honored to welcome all of you joining us from around the world. We are delighted to launch this new series of 5 online conferences on forestry in arid and semi-arid regions and to share the Israel's experience, which will be a wonderful opportunity to forge new partnership between institutions, between professionals, and between nations, and share knowledge, experience, and practical solutions for global challenges. To officially open this program, it's my big pleasure to invite Deputy Director of MASHAF, Ambassador Irit Savion, to deliver some welcome words. Irit, please, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Thank you all for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and thank you so much for joining us in so many countries. It is a great honor to welcome you to this special webinar series dedicated to the topic of forestry in Israel, under the partnership between MASHAV and Israel Agency for International Development Cooperation and Keren Kayemet Israel, the Jewish National Fund, some know it as JNF and some as KKL. Your presence here today signals the growing international interest in sustainable land management, reforestation, and climate resilience, and we are excited to embark on this journey together. Forestry in Israel is a story of vision, preservance, story, and innovation. Over the past century, through the leadership of JNF, Israel has transformed barren landscape into thriving forests, planting over 240 million trees and restoring natural ecosystems in one of the world's most arid and densely populated regions. The Israeli forestry model is not only about planting trees, and that I can tell you from childhood, we all know, we grew up knowing JNF, KKL, Keren Kayemet Israel, as we call it. It's about integrating environmental stewardship with community development, biodiversity, conservation, and smart water management. It is a model deeply rooted in adapting to challenging climate conditions while creating spaces for people and nature to thrive side by side. MASHAV, whom I represent, Israel's International Development Cooperation Agency, has been sharing Israel experience and know-how with the world since 1958, when Golda Meir, then foreign minister, and later on the first and today only female prime minister of Israel, established it. Operating under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are all diplomats and see it part of the foreign policy in strengthening bilateral and multilateral relations of Israel with the world. MASHAV focuses on capacity building and human development by offering training programs, expert missions, and collaborative projects in areas touching in agriculture, water, education, health, innovation, entrepreneurship, and of course, sustainable development and climate adaptation. Its work is guided by the belief that sharing knowledge and building partnership can empower nations to tackle the greatest challenges. The partnership between MASHAV and JNF brings together two pillars of Israeli expertise. One is reforestation and environmental engineering, and the other in development cooperation and global outreach. Together, they exemplify how local experience can be translated into global solutions, especially in the face of climate change, land degradation, and desertification. We invite you to explore these themes with us throughout this webinar series, to ask questions, share your perspective, and become part of a growing network committed to environmental sustainability and international solidarity. And again, I thank you all for joining us today, and I thank you for the interest. And I can tell you, as I said, from personal experience, we all grew up in Israel, knowing the JNF is part of our life. When a child is born, we plant a tree. On Mother's Day, we plant a tree. On birthdays, we plant a tree. We used to do it more when we were kids. Nowadays, grown up, we don't do it enough, and we should. But JNF is part of the Israeli, I want to say system, I want to say the whole framework of the state. It's part of us. It is Israel, and we're very proud of it. Have a wonderful series of webinars. Enjoy it. Thank you very much, Evelyn Rosenthal, Deputy Director of MATC, Mashav Training Center in Agriculture, for organizing it. Thank you, Shani Rothenblitz from JNF, for being a partner, and Dr. Professor Gilad Ostrovsky for leading this webinar. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Irit, for being with us and for those very warm words. Thank you, thank you. Toda rabba. I have found something very nice, and I would like to say that forestry is both a science and an art. It combines knowledge from biology, ecology, and land management with real-world decision-making, where ecological needs and human interests often intersect. I'm very happy to invite Dr. Gilad Ostrovsky, JNF's Chief Forester, for welcome words and also for his lecture of today. Gilad, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gilad Ostrovsky, and I'm the Chief Forester of Israel. I'm very happy to see you all today. JNFKKL, which I'm the Chief Forester of this organization, actually managing the forests of Israel. We have around 500 employees, and the experience and knowledge about or more than 100 years. As you see shortly, our challenges are great. We're a tiny country with a very interesting history in general, but also in terms of forestry. And I'm happy to share the knowledge, and maybe at the end of the lecture, we will leave some room for questions if you want. I would just add that in this seminar, this is the introductory of 5 meetings of seminar, focusing on forest management in semi-arid and arid climates. As I will show you on the map, half of Israel is arid climate zones, and most of it is semi-arid, and we have wet conditions only in very limited spots. So I'm happy to be with you, and now I'll share my presentation with you.
Gilad, maybe before you begin, we will tell everybody that we are recording the presentations. They will be afterwards uploaded in our YouTube page. We will share with you the link. And if there are questions, please write them down in the chat for the moment, and we will try to answer them. So let's have an interesting meeting. Gilad.
Okay, do you see the first slide? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes,
let's
yes,
start.
please.
As you can see, first in Israel, new challenges, updated goals, and you can see for the beginning, our largest forest called Yatir Forest on the edge of the desert, nearly 30,000 dunams, which is 3,000 hectares. For Israel, it's quite big. And if you visited one day, it's really impressive to see what previous generations has created here in Israel. So let's go step by step, and let's start with a bit of history. Nineteenth century, not so long ago, a very famous author, Mark Twain, has visited the land of Israel, and his impression he wrote in a book called Pleasure Excursions to the Holy Land. But what he wrote then in his book was like a sad view of the barren landscape. And he wrote as such: "We hardly saw a tree or shrub anywhere. Even the olive tree had almost deserted the country. The olive trees, the symbol of the Holy Land, was also in very harsh conditions." And actually what he was describing is what you can see here in this picture from the Gilboa Mountains next to the Jordan Valley, just before the plantings that we see soon. Most of the slopes and the hills and the mountains were barren, degraded because of overgrazing and because of, the cutting of wood by the local citizens, mostly for cooking, for heating, and this made the whole view with very few trees. Let's jump in history 100 years to the 20th century. What you see here on the right side is the same Gilboa Mountains, just over the Valley of Israel, next to the Jordan Valley. A recent pictures, you can see the outcomes of a large-scale afforestation, which took place mainly in the 50s and 60s of the 20th century. I would say that early pioneering schemes of plantation, the KKL-JNF, started over than 100 years ago in 1908, in small-scale initiatives, but most of them did not succeed. And then we had a period of 30 years of mandate that the British Empire ruled Israel, and they also tried to do afforestation in small scale with not so much success. But then I think the turning point was after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, where massive numbers of immigrants came to Israel, and a lot of these plantation schemes took place with them. So what we can do here is just one example, very famous, but total changing of the landscape. And if we talk about the Gilboa Mountains, it's semi-arid conditions. This year, we're now talking towards the end of April, we had a very harsh winter with drought. Only about 200 millimeters of rainfall we had in the Gilboa. And the average rainfall is about, here in the Gilboa, about 400, that's all. And, we are very worried about what will happen if the condition become more severe. Anyhow, that's just for the beginning. If we take a larger look at the whole map of Israel, from down south at the Aqaba Gulf, Eilat Gulf, up to the Galil Mountains and the border with Lebanon and the Golan Heights, we can draw down three large groups of forests. The first one is the Galil region. The famous forests are Birya Forest and Baram Forest and Naphtali forests, and some more of them, and like a dense forest next to Haifa, which lie next to the sea. The other one is in the central Israel, just next to Jerusalem, as you can see with the green dots between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And if we're going further south to Beer Sheba, on the edge of the desert, we have also very nice forest with conditions that become with lesser and lesser rainfall. And if you can see the last, third or nearly half of Israel, the southern half, nearly no forest at all, because there is a steep gradient of climate conditions. If we go all the way south to Eilat, to Aqaba Gulf, this year we have only 5 millimeters of rain, and the average rainfall is 20 or 30. It's like extreme desert conditions. So altogether, it's about 1.5 million dunams. In hectares, it's 150,000 hectares. I know it's not so much in international terms, but for us, that's what we have. We very love it, like it, and proud of it. But yes, it can be a size of one big forest in, I don't know, the United States. So this is like a general view of our forests in Israel. After this, the main time that I will speak is about sustainable forest management in Israel, how it reconnects to general terms and the most updated techniques of forestry in the world with the spatial conditions in Israel. On the left, you can see the front of our forest management policy of Israel, guidelines for planning and management, which was published a decade ago in 2014. And this is like a turning point in a way that, as I told you before, in the first decades of our country, of our state, most of the efforts went to actually create the new forest. And nowadays, after 50 or 60 years since then, actually the leaders of JNF KKL has understand that we have to adapt sustainable forest management and to focus also on updated challenges. Most of them come because of climate change, as I show you in a minute. So first of all, we actually reintroduce the management, the forest management goals, because everyone likes forests, but we have to rethink to see what we can hold from the previous time and what we should renew. So one term that you might be familiar with, and this is our primary goal, is actually to provide a variety of ecosystem services. All around the world, people understand the need for variety of ecosystem services, but this not was the case decades ago when we mainly wanted to see barren land becomes afforested. So let's go one by one and say a few words about them. So a big thing in the Israeli forest is, number one, provision of recreational and outdoor activity services. Again, then 100 years ago, it wasn't one of the goals, but today, in a very dense, heavy populated country, I don't know if you know, but the Israeli, unlike Western countries and other countries, we have a very large scale of population growth. we're tiny in land size, but the population is going bigger and bigger, and a lot of people want and needs outdoor activity. We noticed it very hard in the Corona times, and this is one of our major goals. Another thing that also the pioneer spoke about it is landscape diversification. Then in those days, it was to, to turn the hills and the mountains to become more greener. Today, we also update this goal and see that we want within the forest land to be it more diverse, and I will speak about it more after that. The third goal is protection of Israel's native tree species and reintroduction of native trees. Actually, we want to base our forest on native trees. It's not very intuitive to everyone in Israel because you can see today in Israel some of the main trees, not all of them are local. The most famous, I would say, is the eucalypt coming from Australia, and because of its character, we can use it all along the gradient. And there are other, of course, of species. And we want to see the native trees actually taking a bigger and bigger place, even some trees that are mentioned in the Bible, and we know it from early travelers in Israel centuries ago. And the fourth goal, provision of soil and water conservation services. This is actually something that becomes more and more necessity because of changing conditions, because of climate change. We expect and already see, a more intensified rain occasions, shorter winters, longer summers without no rain. And the thing of soil and water conservation is a big thing that the forest can actually hold. And also when we look about upstream forest, and then in the downstream we have cities and towns, we should protect them from floodings. And this is also a big worry that we have now in Israel, because most of the population is actually along the shore and the coastline of Israel. The fifth is supporting Israel's unique biological diversity. This is very nice, and we put a lot of efforts about it. You can see on the pictures on the right. The lower picture, we can see the iris, very beautiful flower in Nazareth, next to Nazareth. And we see the conifer forest just behind. And today we take we conduct a lot of surveys actually to map all those species and to do a management supporting the biological diversity. You can see Chagai on the upper picture, which you meet in one of our next meetings. He actually collects seeds from Ezovion, is one of rare bushes that we have in Israel. And actually he prepares with his team seedlings to put back in the forest. So not just trees, but also biological diversity of all plants in the forest. Number 6 is protection of open landscapes. The forest is a basis for the open landscapes. And today we recognize, especially in dense country, to keep the open landscapes for all kinds of ecosystem services and to stand there for the people, for the nature, for all kinds of ecosystem services, because we know that we should not allow to make Israel, paved with concrete. And the last one, ecological restoration of damaged sites and ecosystems. actually, refers to the decade of restoration that the UN has declared. And we actually try to focus our management efforts to map and to see places that need to be restored in all kinds, next to agriculture, next to construction, next to buildings, old quarries, and also places on the edge of the desert that, because of the lesser rain, can severe, and maybe the trees can, not suitable anywhere. So altogether, it's the forest management goals. And now I'm going to the list of the principles themselves coming from the idea of sustainable development. So first of all is goal-oriented management. We actually do a large efforts of mapping each forest and determine set of management goals. And this is very, very interesting and important because the management actions should suit for what we do, and I'll show you later about it. We should keep habitats suitability, determining forest management goal, forest structure and species composition as a function of the specific habitat conditions and location within surrounding landscapes and ecosystems. Very, very important, and a lot of knowledge and research we put in this theme. Natural processes. As I told you before, most of the forests became with human help, and now we want to actually push forward the natural processes and relying on local species. And even in the cases of we have a big fires, for example, first of all, we want to allow the natural regeneration to take place because, as we see, it's the most, it's the better forest that we can receive. Vitality, tolerance, and stability, managing forests to become vital, healthy systems able to withstand stresses and unexpected hazards. This is something which is really important and refers to climate change. We have a lot of uncertainty. As much as we can have vitality, tolerance, and stability, as much the percentage of having stronger forest is bigger. And also number 6, diversity, complexity, and patchiness is something that we want to encourage, not homogenic, but diversity and complexity in all levels, multi-age, multi-structure, multi-species, and we want to combine it with the natural processes. I must say here, I saw so many countries you come from, it's very different from what we call the commercial forest. In Israel, we do not have commercial forests. All of them are general or like natural reserve or like the general forests, but not for commercial needs. So some of the techniques and methods come from the philosophy of commercial forests, but we manage them for public need. 7 is continuity, and this is also refers to the commercial forest. We want the forest to be, the green cover of the canopy will be stable and green landscape for decades and centuries from now on, not like a rotation phases that we have in commercial forests. And the last one is environmental protection. We see the forest part of the chain of open landscapes and minimizing the environmental impacts in all what we do. And soon will we see some example for that. Okay, when I speak about diversity and complexity in opposite to uniformity and simplicity, you can see it in the pictures. Let's take a look at the first 2 pictures. So in the left side, a typical conifer homogeneous forest. And on the right side, we can see a much more diverse and complex forest with the higher conifer trees. And then just below, we can see the bushes and oaks and all kinds of trees that creating the multi-age, multi-species forest. And when a time of drought, when a time of all kinds of hazards, that this forest is much more resilient for unexpected hazards. Again, another comparison between the two pictures, a younger forest on the left side, and on the right side, a much more complex, diverse, with something else. I must say that for management, sometimes the complexity and diversity is a challenge, as you can see, as you might know, because yeah, you can see, you can, when we talk with technologies, tractors, machinery, and so on, complexity and diversity is a challenge. Okay, when I talk about patchiness, let's take about some pictures. Landscape, wide vegetation mosaic, also, you know, attached to agriculture. This is very common in Israel. And different types of trees near the streams or wadis or gullies. And first of all, to see it, to understand that different management should be taken place. And a lot of places just leave it to natural growing and dynamics. Okay, when I tell you about goal-oriented, which is very interesting for us because we saw quite a few goals, what we actually do with this title is conducting a 1.5 year planning session of the local foresters and his team, and actually conducting surveys and collecting data. And the final product is what you see here. This is the first forest that we actually conducted this procedure, Kedoshim Forest next to Jerusalem. And we define the forest land designations. So as you can see in the middle, we can see the green chain running along the river. This is what we call forest land designation for natural assets. And we want to manage it, the forest, along these designations. If you can see, the yellowish part is heritage and unique landscape formations. For example, we have like ecological site. We can have very nice view of cliffs and like vital scenery. We want to keep it and to actually focus the management to have it with us. Then we have the red lines. Those are fire breaks or fuel breaks, which is very important to actually to prevent fires. And even when fire occurs, to combat the fire and to allow fire trucks to get in safely and to do the fire shutdown safely with our teams. Another one is the pinkish is tourism and recreation. It's the major spots that we actually conduct very intensive management. In Israel, we need a lot of shade because we are a very sunny country. So this will be very intensive treatment, and we have to interact quite quick if there is problems, and to keep it for the people. And Another one, the blue one, is actually a site for research, for long-term research that we conduct in this forest and give us a lot of data and understanding of the forest. And the rest, the green, the shaded green, what we call multiple use forest. This is the major size of the forest. These are the rest of the forest which are not designated for specific designations, but it holds all of the services that the forest holds. This helps us to conduct and to pick where we have to go and what kind of management each site should get. Okay, so this is a little bit of the background and introduction. And as you can see, as you can know, major challenge today is climate change. And I will give you some examples from last years that we have in Israel. As we all know, climate change is actually, we're facing lack of water. It is very worrying. As I told you, just this winter that just ended in Israel, most parts of the land, we got 50% of the annual average. 50%. Most places, it's a record that wasn't ever before. So we are very worrying because we know, according to the research, that if we will have a few years, year by year, with lesser rain, it will affect dramatically the trees and the forest. And we are trying to see what we can do in our hands. So lack of water. Forest fires, as you can see, this is a picture that was taken just 3 years ago in the mountain of Jerusalem. A very big fire, severe fire. For us, it was very big. It was 11,000 dunams, which is 1,000 hectares, on the way to the Jerusalem, our capital. And actually, we can see a lot of them. Unfortunately, we had a lot of fires because on the Lebanese border, because of the wars that we just had. And this is a big thing, how to prevent fires and also to rehabilitate afterwards. So rehabilitation is something that we focus on these days. So let's take a look and to see in depth what does it mean. So, for example, designation of fuel break, you can see a wonderful example. Just before the treatment, you can see the dirt road that is shaded with young conifer trees. And after treatment, and a few years after, you can see the same place after thinning and pruning. It's much more safer. It helps us to reduce the fire expansion. And I would say in terms of climate change, we provide a better suitable conditions for the trees because of the severe conditions of lack of water. So this is a nice example of gaining two goals together: fuel break and also creating a better conditions for the trees. Let's talk about the principle of natural regeneration in the terms of rehabilitations. So you can see on the left side another picture of the big fires that we had 3 years ago. And some photographs were taken just in the next winter. The fire took place in August, and the picture that you can see here is about December, January, few months after. What we can see here, that in a more landscape scale on the left side, we can see that some of the forest stayed green, some of it half green, some of it total loss. and year by year, we just following it, and we assess what the needs to be. And some of the surveys reveal like the beautiful flourish flowers that we can see here, and also from the branch themselves and from the roots, we can see natural regeneration, and we focus and see and if it's enough to actually for the forest to become to regenerate itself in specific places, like I saw you before, where there is a pink color, maybe we should intervene very quickly to obtain those places for the general public. Another nice example of rehabilitation in one of the principles that we like, what we call smart intervention. That means that we want to help in like a chirurgic intervention, and we call it spatial protection. When you see the red arrows, it's like 3 pegs and a net that actually protect new seedlings from the cow on the left side, because most of Israeli forests are under grazing regime, mostly cows, some sheep, but mostly cows. And this is a nice example to go one by one to protect it, to leave the place open for the grazing, but to think about the next generation of the forest hand by hand by the grazing management. Okay, going more toward the south, this is a very nice example of landscape restoration on the edge of the desert in semi-arid conditions. When I say semi-arid, in our Negev, the southern district, is about between 200 millimeters to 300 millimeters average rainfall. That means that we could also have much lesser rain like we had this year. So this is very special to Israel because on a landscape scale, we restored the gullies and streams and rivers and river shoulders just next to agricultural land. And if you can see in the left picture, there is a lot of erosion and degradation that actually getting worse and worse. And this is a very nice example how afforestation with spatial techniques like what we call shikhim in Hebrew, actually mimicking ancient techniques of collecting rainfall and helping actually to have a forest. And you can see on the right side, after quite a few years, how the landscape actually is seen from the sky. And in general view, we get like what we call in Israel savannization. Savannization is like places where scattered trees, and also along the streams, it's much more dense and give a lot of ecological services, conservation, and also multi-use for recreational use. Another nice example of rehabilitation, ecological services for agriculture. Take a look, how nice is it? You can see, if we take a look with the red arrow, there is a little creek, and this is actually erosion that's taking place very quickly. All this creek just created in few years. So what our foresters actually do is relying on the dirt road to actually stop the creek to go further into the agricultural land by the planting scheme that you can see in the middle, and also special infrastructure that we cannot see now, very local, made by stones, that actually stop this degradation process that actually degrade the ability of farmers to cultivate their land. And you can see some of the techniques in the left picture. Sometimes we should build, low terraces. Sometimes it will be just gravel and mud. Sometimes it will be limans, which is on the stream itself, collecting more water, which support a wider species of trees and can support a lot of shade. So altogether, you can see this landscape. It's like a much more vital landscape than we saw in the previous slide. And all this green view, the agriculture is by irrigation, but the forest land is without irrigation, expect in the early years, the 3 or 4 years after plantation of the trees. Again, about rehabilitation in the eyes of soil and water conservation, just take a look at the middle picture. The problem, as you can see, erosion, where our friend is standing there. There is every flood, there is a massive amount of soil is just washed down. We get these creeks that actually getting wider and longer, harming infrastructure, and this is a big problem. So take a nice look left and right. First of all, take a look to the right picture. This is what we call solution 2 upstream. We go to the upstream section of the basin, and we build some retention pools. And sometimes we actually do it, as you can see, outside the forest land, because we want to support the farmers. And also downstream, take a look at the left picture. In the forest itself, we can build those contours of stones, and actually we get also nice view. We retain and conserve the water. It supports also the trees in this area, and also it became like recreational attraction. And the pictures that you see here is only from winter time, because Israeli climate, we have a winter of 4 months between November to March, 4 or 5 months, getting shorter, unfortunately. And all these streams and floodings is only at the winter time. So this is very nice example how managing the forest can solve problems for infrastructure and create some nice view, more forests, and also support recreation. As we spoke before on biodiversity, and we take a closer look, not just plants, but also animals, birds, we conduct a lot of ecological surveys. Actually, what we found in the last decade, that the forest, even very dense forest, which some scientists thought before it's much poorer in terms of diversity, we find a lot of assets. Excellent. Some of them are endemic. And we would like also to do a spatial and careful management, protect them, to define what they need in terms of management, and to make sure that maybe they spread even more than they were before. Another thing that actually represents Israel is protecting natural assets. Plenty of natural and cultural assets in the forest, and please see how many examples. Some is an archaeological site. Some, if we have like a zone of extraordinary flowers. We can see it as a natural asset. We can see like, you know, cliffs and a typical nice local view of oaks and cliffs. And also it could be, you know, like a stream or little pool in this example in the Judean hills next to Jerusalem. And on the left side is like what we call a bustan, like ancient orchard, but not a modern orchard, but typical trees of almond and olive tree and some more that actually are very typical to Israeli sites, and we see it as natural and cultural assets. It's part of the forest. For example, on the left side, we should do sometimes intensive management because we want to keep it, not letting, you know, the forest to go over it, because it represents ancient landscape, and we want to preserve it. And in this example, actually, we also invite the local people to come and to be part of the management of this site. Okay, green picnic, as if you remember, one of our sustainable management principles is environmental protection. So what we can see here is that we would like to keep the shrubs and also in terms of picnic areas with no pesticides, just with machinery to, you know, do the cutting if needed. On the right side, you can see the single for bike riders. Also, let the bike open the trail by themselves, and just letting the view to be more healthy and to not have any environmental damage in the management of the forest. As you see, even in plantation, we try to do weeding instead of spraying. That means with just to do to let the water just collecting them near the seedling, but not with spraying any chemicals, because we think it's not good for the environment and also for the seedling themselves. And to hold all this, we conduct extensive long-term monitoring and research. And this is a whole thing. I think Shani will speak about it in one of the next meeting. We have a lot of knowledge, a lot of pioneering schemes, and this gives us a lot of data how to manage the forest. So if to sum up, the main challenge is actually to do sustainable management hand in hand with growing demand for leisure and public activity. And I would add, in face of climate change. So this was like in a very quick brief of our policy and some pictures and photographs from different places in Israel. That's for now.
Oh, thank you, Gilad. Okay, we have a nice time for questions and comments, maybe. So first of all, bravo. And I don't know why I'm sitting in the office, actually, not traveling around our forests. Okay, so that's the moment to open really cameras if you can. It would be great to see you, friends. Wait a minute. Do we have everybody here? Gilad is with you, with us?
Yeah, I can see some of the questions. I refer to one of the questions when you say we, do you mean the state? Yes, KKL-GNF is quite special because, but it is acting forest service, actually. The history of KKL-GNF is quite unique because it was created as a private firm to buy lands in Israel, but in very early stages, KKL and GNF, we actually, afforestation was one of the main issues dealt with. So today we act as a forest service. There is a question from Cameroon. I'm not sure I understand. If you can ask again, or from Jean Baptiste. Is there a possibility to let him ask?
I asked 3 questions. So which one is it that you want me to explain more?
Excuse me, can you repeat?
Yes, I said I asked 3 questions. So I'm not sure which one do you want me to explain a little more.
Okay, you can ask one of them. Do you want to repeat one of the questions?
Yes. I said in Cameroon, in northern Cameroon, we face a lot of feelings of helplessness. The people feel like doing reforestation or planting trees is something beyond their reach. I wondered whether you encountered this in Israel, but I understand that you are a state agent, therefore you probably didn't find those issues. But in a context where the government is not very successful and the people do not feel empowered enough to take the situation in their own hands, how do you change that? That was my main focus. How do you bring people to understand that they can act on the environment and be able to plant trees and to make them grow?
Okay, I think we have to define whether it's large-scale afforestation, which you need like the state or a big organization, maybe combined with NGO that can bring the funds, but also the professional knowledge. Because you know it's not just a planting. You want the seedlings to survive, and then to protect them, and to make sure that actually the plantation will succeed. So I think this should be very well organized and very well connected to the local conditions, that make sure that there will be no harming, and to find and to pick the right species, and to understand the climate conditions, and so on. There is another scale that we can think in a more local scale, you know, just surrounding a village, or actually KKL-GNF is assisting a very nice project in Kenya, in Turkana, which helping, you know, locals in a very remote village to help them to create like a local forest, very open forest. And this forest provides them many ecological services, you know, grazing, better grazing, food for the animals, shade, containing water, and some fruits from the trees in a more little scale. And then I think NGO plays a crucial role.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gilad, do you see the other questions from Ararat, for example? I don't know if you already
Okay,
answered
yeah,
it.
I can read some of them. Musa Assad asked, do you have any strategy and plan to prevent forest from fire? It's a very central issue for us. Actually, we have a very detailed method how to create those fuel breaks, those dirt roads that surround village and towns, and also within the forest itself. And this helps us a lot to contain the fire, to shut it down, and even to prevent it. So each forester, he has actually to show us a yearly program how actually he managed those fuel breaks, and if it's needed, actually to also to have new ones to help defend the fires, to stop the fires. And another question I will pick. In the afforestation efforts, this Marvin Tajeda asked, in the afforestation efforts, does it involve non-endemic plant tree species that has become invasive? Okay, good question. Very good. We are very worried about invasive plants. We do not use invasive plants for plantation, for sure. But we have to pick what is the right place to intervene and to fight them. And also for that, we have a very detailed scheme how to map them. For example, in terms of invasive species, we have to look about the whole basin and to pick the right place because they can spread by the wind and so on. And yes, so in short, we do not use them. We try to eliminate as much as we can. Okay, rolling down.
I think there is an interesting question about the community conflicts and steps taken to encounter them from Esther. I think maybe it goes a bit more in politics. And
can you read it loud?
Do we have any community conflicts and steps taken to encounter them? How supportive is your government towards tree growing initiatives?
Actually, I think most of the people and communities, they like to live near the forest. It's a big gift. The only, I think, encountering or so on is when we come and we want to create a fuel break, they do not like that we're cutting down and thinning some of the trees. So they become angry and they don't understand that we do it for their safeness. But generally, I would say that communities like the forest in general.
I see questions are coming and coming. What do you suggest, Shani? Maybe
we'll take two more.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have some
I
time.
Yeah. Thing is, yours is a new endeavor as far as forest is concerned. 100 years, maybe 100 years history you are having. Can you expect wildlife there? Wildlife means animals. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible or not?
More or less, Sugur, if you can repeat your question.
Okay. Thing is, as far as forest history is concerned, you were very recent, actually 100 years or at the most 200 years. Right from Mark Twain, I am observing that during British regime, what has happened, and during 1948, after establishment of Israel as independent country, you have started the initiation of forest. Do you see any wildlife? Wildlife, I am asking, wildlife means animals. Can you find any animals there?
Yeah, actually, what we see, as I said today, because we are a very dense country, you know, you don't have more than a few kilometers without infrastructure, roads, settlements. So actually, some of the big mammals that we have in the past in Israel, like a bear or tiger, we don't have anymore. But it's interesting because I think other species of animals, mainly birds, other reptiles, and so on, I think some of them, the population is expanded because of the better conditions that actually the forest gave. So we don't have big animals like, you know, elephants or other like this.
Do you have
Okay, last question.
do you have any records of the new species of birds being visiting your forest area? Because all your Middle East birds will come to India for breeding. And do you
No,
have any, the thing is, since you have maintained the data, especially in the research forest, do you notice any new species coming there and settling there? Let's talk only on the birds, because birds are free and they can change their habitation more frequently. We talk about birds only. Do you have any visit of birds in your forest area?
what we actually see when we conduct the surveys and our eyes are broadly more open, that some kind of birds, they like to have their nests over, you know, high canopy, like conifers or eucalypt. And actually the creation of the forest allow them to be in the forest, and we want to protect it. Actually, what we do when we find like a nest of a prey bird, we do like circulate with 30 meters at least. And when we have a management, like for example, of thinning, we do not get in closer to leave it for them. So when also we try to do it in the right season, in the dry season, and yeah, it's a big issue actually to know and to understand what the birds actually like in the forest. And I see here a very interesting question. How do you overcome overgrazing after rehabilitation? Excellent question. We have a discussion today because you're right. After rehabilitation, especially when we have planting, if we allow the cows to get in, a lot can be destroyed. It's heavy animal, they eat the leaves, and we do what I showed you before, the spatial protection. One by one, each seedling get its protection for 10 years until you know the trees will grow and the leaves and the canopy will go just beyond the height of the head of the cow. This is one technique. In some cases, we fence the whole area, but we don't like it because if we fence all of the area, we have to take out all the cows out, and also we a little bit afraid of spreading of fires because, you know, the grazing give us this service of eating the grass and minimizing the risk for fires. So yeah, it's a big thing because we have a lot of grazing.
I have a question. My name is Godino from Kenya. I appreciate that you're doing a project in Turkana. How do you ensure survival of these trees, especially the young seedlings? And considering the seasonality of that area, it's normally quite dry when it's so dry after planting. How do you ensure that the plants have water? And you know, the distance of fetching water in Turkana is another challenge. And I think this is the same problem that we're having in our arid and semi-arid areas, where yes, we plant trees, but after the long rains, they survive, then during the dry spell, they dry. Now, what is the strategy that you normally use to ensure that the survival? It's easy to plant a tree, but the challenge is actually maintaining that tree.
Yeah. Actually, we had a very nice pictures and videos just recently were taken in Turkana.
Oh, great.
Because our forester Gil just visited. I'm not sure, Shani, about the irrigation system beyond the natural, if you can say a few words.
Yeah, first of all, it's good that you know for the first 3 or 4 years in semi-arid and arid land, we irrigate. So we use either irrigation constant systems by piping, or we come with a truck and we water the trees. But again, for the first 3-4 years until the trees become older and they manage to establish by themselves, then we irrigate with water. In Turkana, I know they use also, they harvest water like rainwater, and they also use the groundwater also for irrigation. And I think Gilad showed nice pictures for our water harvesting systems. So we use this terrace technique of creating kind of small terrace in order to collect the water from the rain in a better way. I think this is the most common practices. Otherwise, we use more resistance for drought species. So we have the acacia. I think I also saw one question regarding the species that we use. We have different acacia types that are local, and other species. Even the Aleppo pine that we are using is quite drought tolerant. This is how it managed to thrive so much in Israel.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we have a lot to talk. Maybe, Evelyn, I saw some question about Turkana. We can send some materials to you that we have, and maybe some, I don't know, cooperation beyond this lecture.
Gilad, we have one
I'll
hand,
appreciate.
one raised hand, maybe. Fabrice. I will ask everybody for also today about next meetings, those who have questions to raise the hand so we can organize better the questions and answers. So Fabrice, where are you from? And the question.
Okay, good afternoon. Hope you are hearing me. My name is Fabrice. I'm coming from Rwanda. I work for Kilimo Trust. It's an NGO, a region NGO, working into agribusiness and farming process management, and even the forestry and management. So thank you for having us today for these long-term sessions about environment. I'm excited for the presentation. So I have a question that it's a two questions. The first is how Israel is managing to be making a rehabilitation. What they mentioning that they have they have lack of water. How they made that plantation, that rehabilitation made effectively with that case, as we have seen that a lot of Africans, sub-Saharan Africans, they have the same case. The second is what the advice for those developing countries. So we have seen that those countries, they have a problem of water use efficient. So I want to get where understood about that and get informed and give advice to address that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the basic thing is actually to yeah, there is a lot of knowledge to actually to pick the right species to the right place and the soil conditions and the runoff conditions, and also to build those terraces or limens or shicks and so on to use the natural rainfall and runoff and floodings and so. Yes, sometimes we use also what Israel is famous in is the dripping systems. You know, pipes with dripping systems that help us, but not always. Yeah, I don't know special advice, but I think the combination of the right species, the right season, the right amount of added irrigations that we have, and yeah, protect them from any problems.
I want to add that our next lecture is about dryland afforestation and rehabilitation, and I think you will have more information and more answers to your question exactly about how do we manage to grow trees and forest in drylands. So
thank you.
Good.
Okay.
I know, Gilad, you are a bit in a hurry today. But before you leave, let's make a picture. First opening session picture. So if for a minute we can all open our cameras and let's do a toast for the opening of this series of web conferences. And it's the moment to thank so much Gilad for sure, but I want to thank so much also my partner in this program, Shani. Thank you so much for working together. Great, and well, we have a long way to go from today. So I have a glass here. So
me too.
So let's do it for what? For the establishment of new forests, for greening the world. And if we can bring a bit of peace to this world, it would be great. So thank you, everybody. We are finishing now. So let's say thank you to everybody for joining us today. We are meeting next week. Next week.
Yes.
Same,
yes, sure.
same link and same hour, okay, for our second meeting. I will put in a second the link for our Facebook and also for the YouTube, and you will find there the video of this meeting and the next ones. And if there are more questions there, we will try to answer them somehow. Shani, maybe with an email to everybody or something like that.
Yeah, I saved the chat and I will try maybe to gather answers for all the questions. Okay. Most of them.
So let's do a toast and a picture and everybody smiling. And thank you again for being with us.
And thank you, Evelyn, for organizing all it.
Thank you for having us today.
And shalom from Israel.
Shalom from
shalom.
Israel. Yes.
Okay.
Shalom from Rwanda.
Hello.